Years ago, 1982 actually, I was in a mountain climbing accident, as stated in the introduction, and I suffered severe frostbite to my legs, my lower legs. And after months of effort, my medical team gave up the fight to save my biological limbs, and they were amputated just below the knee. And I woke up one day with a very different body, and I asked myself, what next? I actually asked that question to my rehabilitation doctor, and he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to drive my car, I want to ride my bicycle, and I most certainly want to return to my chosen sport of mountain climbing. And he, without hesitation, said, you'll be able to drive a car, but with hand controls, but I'm afraid you will not be able to ride a bicycle nor return to mountain climbing. And I cried for about 24 hours straight, and then I realized that he really didn't know me, and he perhaps didn't know technology. Technology, we all know, gets better and better every darn month. So it's very hard to predict what may in fact be possible in the future with technology. So after just 12 months post-surgery, I was climbing better than I had achieved with normal biological limbs. And I was a top climber in the country at the time. So that was really, really inspiring. And I went from being an absolutely terrible student in high school. I mean, I was lucky if I got a C in a course, to really being excited about science and mathematics and engineering. Because I realized the extraordinary power of technology to heal, to rehabilitate, and even in my case, to extend human capability beyond innate physiological levels. So what we want to do in bionics is take sensors on the prostheses, such as I'm wearing, about the prosthetic joint position and speed and the forces applied to the prosthesis, and actually stimulate into the human nervous system so the user can feel their prosthesis, can feel force, can feel positions. So how do we do that? I thought I'd mention this project because there's so many world-class surgeons in the audience. So I think you'll be intrigued by this. So when a limb is amputated, obviously key nerves, motor nerves are transected. So what we do surgically is we take muscle from various parts of the body, creating muscle grafts. We link them together mechanically in a surgical way. We make sure there's a passive element separating the muscle grafts, such as tendon, so that the muscles are electrically isolated. The nerves then regenerate and attach to the muscle end organs. Then when the agonist contracts, it stretches the antagonist. Then that signal, that afferent signal, goes up to the spinal cord and tells the human that the muscle has stretched, and also that there's been a force increase. And we can artificially stimulate one muscle to vary the position of its partner muscle, or to vary the force of the muscle. So you see on the left, for every degree of freedom in the prosthesis, we have one of these AMI structures that stands for agonist-antagonist myo-neural interface. So here in an animal model, we show the ENG, which is the signal going through the nerve up to the spinal cord versus time. And every time the little AMI muscles contract, we get a signal going up to the spinal cord that the muscle has been stretched. And as we increase the amount of stimulus of the agonist muscle partner, we get an increasing afferent feedback up to the spinal cord by the antagonist. Really exciting. Would this work in humans? So here's an animation showing a surgery that we did on our first human patient last summer. It's a transtibial amputation. And what the surgeon did is run by Matt Carty at Brigham and Women's. He took synovial sleeves distally, attached them to the tibia as bearing surfaces for the agonist-antagonist muscle pairs that were created in the residuum. So one pair we will use to actuate the artificial ankle joint, the second pair for the artificial subtalar joint. And our hypothesis is the person when they look down and see the bionic limb moving, they'll actually feel the movement in their nervous system. And when we apply force to the prosthesis, they'll feel the force. So here's our patient. He's showing us on his affected leg what he's doing with his phantom limb. So basically, with his phantom limb, he's swiveling his foot ankle from dorsiflexion to inversion to plantar flexion and then to eversion. And then those black boxes on the affected side are measuring the muscle electrical pulse, the electromyography. And a control system then predicts the position of his phantom limb as is being described by this unaffected limb. And with a very simple controller, we're not using machine learning or anything fancy here, we're able to have a very robust prediction of his intended phantom limb position. And what's really cool, when we ask our patient, what do you feel? He feels the full dynamics of his ankle that's no longer there and his subtalar joint that's no longer there. So I have conventional amputations. My amputations were done a very long time ago in 1982. My muscles were tacked down at constant length. So when my muscles contract in my residuum, they can't stretch their antagonist partner, and there's not that feedback to my spinal cord. So I feel my feet as a phantom awareness, but it feels like my feet are in rigid ski boots, that I can't move them. What our patient feels is full movement of his foot ankle phantom limb. So each leg has 3 microprocessors and 12 sensors, and I'm basically a bunch of nuts and bolts from the knee down. But with Bionics, I'm freed from human limitation, physical limitation, from disability. I can run, I can dance, I can skip, I can do whatever I want to do physically.